Welcome to Moment Talk. I'm your host, Shisa Moore, and our co-host, Mai Tao. On episode 17, we have a gentleman named Dur. He is a pastor, and we're going to speak on this episode about how his spiritual awakening has led him in that direction, and also in going to school for theology. He speaks about his awakening and how he was able to find that, and when he met his wife, that all changed too. But first, let's thank our sponsors, and we'll get to the show. Today's sponsor is brought to you by She Sells Menswear. Are you looking for the latest trending men's fashion? Look no further. She Sells Menswear carries handcrafted bow ties, suit accessories, and everyday streetwear. They are your one-stop mall-inspired men's shop. You can search them online at www.xixomenswear.com. Now let's get back to the show. We are super excited today, boys and girls and listeners. We have Dur and then also my co-host Mai here today, and we have a guest that is. I'm super excited. I'm super excited. How's it going, Dur?
It's going good over here. Yeah, just hanging out with family and all of that good stuff.
Oh, what are you and your family doing tonight? Did you just have dinner ready?
Yeah, it's one of those nights we all come home, we all fix dinner, and then actually I just went to Golden Harvest for some deli takeout.
Oh.
And yeah, that's a local grocery store here if you're in the Twin Cities.
On my way over.
Yeah.
That's a very familiar, very popular supermarket here in the Twin Cities for sure.
It is really popular, and it looks nice. It's one of the few Asian grocery stores that looks really nice.
Oh, that's right. They got renovated or remodeled or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
yeah, let's
sometime.
Let's dive into this conversation. You were born in a household of shamanism, am I right?
That's right. Yep.
And you would has now become a pastor.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I am a pastor. I'm a pastor in residence at a local church in St. Paul. We're called Roots Covenant Church. I've been there for about a year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Oh, Sashi, go ahead. Go ahead, ask what you're going to ask.
I was going to say, I was going to curious you more about your spiritual growth and how did that come about? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. So, I mean, we could spend the whole time doing this, but I'm going to condense it for us. When growing up, we had, just like a lot of Hmong families, the Yearning coming over to do shaman rituals, healings, oning, all of that stuff. And for us growing up, that was just a normal family gathering. But like a lot of other families too, a lot of us are, coming out of the Vietnam War, just a lot of trauma and a lot of deep wounds in our family. And so I remember in my earlier high school years, just feeling a deep longing for life to change, for life to be different. I was longing for truth. I just felt like, is this really it? And so I didn't know that I was searching for any kind of God. If you asked me then, I wouldn't say I was looking for God or for Jesus, but I was just looking for truth. And, fast forward my time in college, that's when I met my wife now. Her name is Alice. I met her. She was the first Hmong Christian that I had ever struck a friendship with. And for me, Hmong and Christian were like two different worlds. I didn't have a category for what a Hmong Christian was. All my Hmong family, both immediate and extended, we were all shamans. So to be a Hmong Christian was a clash of worlds for me. But I noticed, that she was just different. I obviously didn't know what it was that I was, why I was attracted to her, in terms of like what made her different. But coming into that friendship, I already had all sorts of questions. I had a lot of questions already on, if there is a God, how do I know that this God wants me to read the Christian Bible compared to any other, literature? I was also asking questions like, why do we need Jesus? Wasn't Jesus just a human person? Didn't he just create this religion that we call Christianity? Why do we need Jesus? Can't we just go straight to God who transcends human cultures and human religions? I was asking Alice all these questions, and she grew up in the monk church. And so for her answer was always, well, you just got to believe. You just got to have faith. And for me, that wasn't sufficient of an answer. And so I kept asking, who is Jesus? Why do we need Jesus? Fast forward like a year of having those conversations with Alice, I was going to a couple of college campus events, and I kept asking those questions too. One day I remember asking Alice, hey, I still don't get it. Why do we need Jesus? Who's Jesus? And on this particular day, I remember feeling like all of a sudden I asked the question, so tell me again. I'm like, I still don't get it. Why do we need Jesus? All of a sudden, after I asked that question, Alice didn't say anything. And all of a sudden, my mind and my thoughts just get flooded with a sense of all the wrong that I've done and the way that I've mistreated my family members, my siblings, the way that I've mistreated my parents and my friends, and the way that I've just turned inwardly so selfishly. All of a sudden, all of those thoughts just started coming to me for the first time. I never thought that I was a bad person. I thought I was a pretty good person, right? Like I wasn't involved with gangs, and I wasn't getting locked up, right? And so I thought I was a pretty good person. But all of a sudden on this day I asked that question, and what I believed is that God supernaturally responded to me, to my question of why I needed Jesus. And so what I felt like God was saying was, you need Jesus because God is a pure and holy God, and there by yourself, you can't approach this pure and holy God. And Jesus is the one who can restore you to this God. And so, again, like I said, I could spend the whole 30 minutes on this, but that's just a quick, 5-minute snapshot of it. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Jer. So I wanted to actually go back to the beginning when you said that you did grow up in a shamanistic family, and there was a lot of hurt and things like that due to the war.
Right.
But being a monk, a lot of families go through that, and there's a lot of post-trauma that comes with it.
Yeah.
But what was happening in your life at that time that made you question that? I mean, was there a specific moment, a situation? Did someone say something to you to push you to examine your whole life in a different angle, where you start asking questions?
Yeah. So I think for myself, I'm just a really analytical, introspective, reflective kind of person. And so for me, it's just my default to kind of question my context and question, what's going on around me. So I wouldn't say there was anything like external that triggered me, other than, again, just the sheer, toxic ways in which a lot of Hmong families are. So, if I can just be blunt, I'm talking about, domestic abuse, right? I'm talking about financial crises that create, arguments in the home. I'm talking about, just, it's like a family of us. I have 5 siblings. We all live together, but there were many, many days where we didn't interact, right? And so it's like you're in the same house, but there's no community. There's no actual family relationships going on, And so, and my dad was a semi-truck driver, so he'd be gone for 3, 4, 5 days at a time, sometimes like a week or 2 weeks. And my mom was working a night shift, so the 6 kids, we'd come home from school, I was the second oldest, so I'd be responsible for, making sure everybody was fed, making sure everyone's kind of, doing their schoolwork and getting to bed on time. And I think just overall, it wasn't a healthy family environment, and I think that was the external thing that really uh, kind of made me again just yearn for some healing, for some restoration, and for like basically for a better version of life. Like what else is there, right? Like
Okay.
is this it? Yeah.
Okay. And you did mention that you never met. So until you met your wife Alice, you've never. Did you ever hang out around any other person that had a different practice than you, like Christianity or maybe atheist or who doesn't know of God? Because you mentioned that when you met your wife Alice, she was the first Christian person you ever like struck a conversation with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Alice was the first Hmong Christian that I'd ever
Okay.
met. But
Uh,
growing up in a predominantly white, school district, um, everyone was nominally Christian, right? Everybody went to church. I don't know if that automatically means that they have like if they take their faith seriously or not. Obviously we don't know that, but you know how like a lot of Hmong people, they grow up in a shaman home, but that doesn't really mean they really understand shamanism either, right? It's just what their parents do. So that's how it is for a lot of our white American friends. They just grow up, they're going to church. So obviously I was around, a lot of people who went to church, and they were all white, and as far as I could tell, nobody talked to me about their faith. So I just took that as no one took it seriously. So then when I met Alice, she was the first Hmong person who talked about her faith in God. And for me, that was just a clash of worlds because all my Hmong relatives are all shaman.
With your wife Alex, that must again you were so curious by it because she couldn't give you the answer. She's just more like
Mm-mm.
just believe in God, and that was it. Well, like when then of
Yeah,
course you're like such a curious creature, like
yeah,
why? And I need analyticals, I need ideology, I need
yeah.
even history. So you were seeking for it. It seemed like you had a lot of question about God, and that led you to theology.
Yeah, it did. Yep.
Could
Yep.
you
So that,
elaborate on that? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. All the questions that I was asking Alice when I first met her, those are questions that were already, stirring up inside of me even before I met her. Even before I was introduced to a Hmong Christian, I had these questions about faith and about God and about Jesus. I just had nobody to ask them to, right? So when I met her,
mhm.
like all my questions just start flooding out. And you know, it wasn't until I went to Bible college that I was like, oh my gosh, the questions, the content and the subjects that we're learning about in Bible college, those are all the questions that I was asking way back when I was trying to, figure this thing out. I had no idea that there were whole, theological subjects and books and, disciplines on the questions that I was asking. I thought they were just my own personal questions, like why did Jesus have to die for us? Right? Like what like why did like if there's a God, why did God make it so that Jesus have to die? That doesn't make sense. Like why can't God just come down and say I'm God and then show us, what it means to follow God without Jesus dying. So in theological circles, they have a technical word for that. They call that atonement, where atonement is really to make one again, right? So you atone for your sins. Even in Hmong shaman, there's kind of a parallel where we do animal sacrifice, right? We do animal sacrifice to win the favor of the spirits around us, right? So you kill an animal, and then that earns you that favor. Well, atonement in the Christian concept of why Jesus died is very similar. It's that Jesus died so that that's God's way of showing his love and his justice for humanity who's broken. Humanity is broken, and God sends His Son Jesus as the ultimate sacrifice, so that we can be at one with God again, or be atoned to God again. So I didn't know I was asking all those questions that there's already books on. But yeah, it led me to study Christian theology at a deeper level. I don't know if my questions have been answers, or if I just have more questions.
I think in life, answers are always going to be asked. Because I think at times when we think that we have found a purpose in life,
right,
something happens, right? And then we go searching again.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think now when you had, when you grew up as in a shaman home, go through what you have. Were you also searching for a, I don't want to say God, but were you looking for some sort of, what's the right word for it? An escape, just I guess you can say savior, or were you looking for some sort of spiritual growth to like help you sustain help you go through what you were going through, to be the best brother you can for your siblings while your parents are out there earning their living. Even if in the toxic world that you were in, were you searching for spiritual growth to help you maintain that duty in your life at that time?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the temptation to escape our troubles is very real, no matter who we are, right? And I think in my context, I think the one word that I would describe what I was feeling was, when you boil it all down, I was looking for hope. And I was looking for a renewed sense of hope, of like, what better version of the world is there? What better version of what it means to be a human is there? Is this it? We just, families just argue, and we can never break out of that cycle. We can never treat each other with love and with, self-sacrificial love towards each other. Like, is that not a possible way, right? And so it was really kind of like, I felt like I was at the end of my rope. Like I couldn't, pull myself out. And I think that's what faith does, right? And one person could say, well, if that's what faith is, if it's just hope, then aren't all the religions right? Because all the religions offer hope, right? And I think to that, I would say, faith and trust are really similar. And like the analogy I might use is, if you're going to lean your ladder on a wall, a lot of the religions, they have like a nice wall. You can lean your ladder on it to put your trust. You put your weight on the ladder. You trust the wall is going to hold you up, right? And so what I'm saying is that I think a lot of religions offer something like that, but I think Jesus is the wall or the rock that's going to outlast all of them. That if I'm going to put my ladder on any one person, if I'm going to put my trust in any one person, it's going to be Jesus. And so yeah, trust, hope, renewal, healing. I think all of those things were what I was looking for. And I think it's what most of us are looking for, if we're honest. But it's just where we place our trust to find that hope.
Right. Well, I'm glad you found yours.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people still, search for that.
Absolutely.
Now, did you? So I want to actually. What I find really interesting was last time when you spoke about you getting married, you marrying your wife Alice, and thôi you ching cho cô cái trai mà đâu the new cái trai này yo so
Right.
cái con ấy sao na how
Right.
I have always wondered how does that gonna happen. How did your family and her family come together and make that happen?
Yeah, no, that was interesting. Lots of challenges, as anyone might guess. But it started with me, talking one on one with my dad, saying, "Dad, hey, um, I personally believe in God and Jesus, and I'm talking to my dad. Hey, I want to get married in a way where it'll be honoring to our guy, but also honoring to what I believe God made marriage to be. Right? Like if I believe that God is the creator of all things and of all people, then I believe that God has a purpose for marriage and for reproduction of life. Right? And so I wanted to honor that and also honor my Hmong tradition. So I talked to my dad, and it definitely required him to kind of put himself on the line. So my dad, I feel like he's rough around the edges, but when it comes down to it, he comes through. And so he spoke with some of
Now,
our. What's that?
does your family go to church too, or only you?
Only me. So at the time
Okay.
that I was getting married, it was just me. I had one brother who was going to church, but my parents were not going to church.
Mm,
And
okay.
so, yeah, my dad was not going to church, but I think he had enough support and just trust in who I was as his son that he wanted to kind of make it happen, where we could get married kind of the way that I wanted to, honoring both the Hmong tradition and also honoring God's purpose for marriage. And so my dad, he spoke with some of our clan leaders and family members, and um, yeah, I think it almost got to the point where many of them were confused on like why my dad would do this. Um, so then, we came back and then kind of brainstormed some more, and we reached out to the one of the local churches in the area. It's the church where my wife was, grew up going to in Milwaukee, and they have some megongs to help with the whole process. And so we kind of did a combination of, there was a few representatives from my clan, and then we borrowed the church megongs. So it was kind of a
Oh,
right, kind of a hybrid, right? And we did all the traditional, as far as like, Bemuhai, Bemuhai, the La Jana, right? The Mongshong's family. And so we did the dowry, the negotiations. That process took all day. At the end of that, we, the pig was already killed, but we butchered it. I remember it was like 3 a.m. and we just finished the negotiation,
yeah.
and someone
Yep.
from her side was like singing this folk song to kind of close the whole thing out. And then one of my cousins brings out this baby pig that had been butchered already, and he starts chopping it up. So now we're like cooking this pig at like 3 a.m. And it was crazy. So
有了啲半年，我一去用熱氣了又，
只用饮
有
料。
了啲半年，我一去用熱氣了。
Yeah, hopefully we only learn that once. But
Yes.
yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's so. How has and I wanted to actually make it clear that this is not at all comparing what you believe before was as to what it is now. But it's interesting to see how people take their own religion or faith, however you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
and use it for good. Use it as a motivation to help others or to be a better person. And in your case, you found your path. You went with it. You found a partner who supports you in it. And it seems like it has done a great deal for you spiritually. I'm sure it has brought you joy. If you were to compare who you are today, and minus the being the pastor and so forth, and who you were before, how have you changed? How different are you now compared to before?
Yeah, all my college friends, bunch of Hmong guys, and my siblings. I think everyone who knew me before I placed my trust in Jesus, I think all of them can describe a really different person from who I am today. Um, my siblings knew me as, again, this, 14, 15-year-old older brother who, they called it, it was like I was ruling with an iron fist, because like, again, mom and dad were gone, and I was responsible for the four of them, and you know, you got to cook, you got to clean, you got to put all that stuff away, and then you got to do the dishes. And when people weren't doing it, me being the older brother, I would just use my strength, right, to push my brothers around, right? Like, hey, you're not gonna vacuum, I'll just shove you around, make by force, right? Make you vacuum, So my brothers and sisters, they'll describe me like that. Again, that was, I'm talking like I was like, that was like 15, right? 14, 15. I wasn't doing that when I was like 18, 19. And then my college friends, we went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, huge party school, right? And, my college friends will say I was like one of the best, like I could drink the most, they kind of know me as,
really?
yeah, they kind of know me as the guy who can hang the most when it comes to drinking, because that's where that's my story, so I'm not going to cover it up, right? And that's part of my journey. And so I think that, since I came to faith, I think a lot of my friends, they look at me, we'll still hang out, we'll still see each other during weddings, or, each other get married, we invite each other to our weddings. But, they've told me, like, Dur, you're just so different now. Sometimes I think about going to church too, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm like, am I too sinful, or, I got to get right with God first. Mm-hmm. And to that, I just tell them, like, no, you can't. There is no getting right with God outside of going to church and bringing your crappy self, right? You just got to bring who you are before God, and then God meets you in who you are. So that's part of all of our stories. Nobody gets himself cleaned up first. So I think my friends and my siblings would describe me like that.
Okay. How's the relationship today with your family? How are you guys today as a whole?
Yeah, man, we've gone through all sorts of challenges. So when I first started sharing with my family that, I think I believe in God, I think I want to start going to church, I'm pretty sure about this. They were all pretty resistant. They were like, no, man, you're like, it's like you're leaving us, right? That's how they feel like. It's like you're leaving us for a different identity, a different religion. So there was some disagreements, and I feel like, some relationships have like healed from that, but still, it still feels a little different. So that was like the earlier days of me coming to faith and what that did to my family relationships. But then my parents got a divorce. Let's see. I mean, it's been like 10 years now, right? That they got a divorce, maybe 12 years. And my family, split up after that. So the divorce like just destroyed our family. That was no longer about, Dur and his Christian faith anymore. That was just about, oh my gosh, mom and dad aren't together. And our family was just totally just disassembled. Everyone lived in different parts of the country. So coming out of that, we slowly started to, see each other more. And nowadays we get together pretty regularly for the holidays, around Thanksgiving, Christmas, and it's fun. We really enjoy each other's company. I feel like my siblings and I we're all so alike, that we get each other. So in many ways, I think it's safe to say that my relationship with them is probably has probably been the best it's been, considering the past 10 years of events.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. I think siblings were all so much alike. But picture also, she at the end of the day, the Mahayana, we're all the same. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
We're pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So what is, a lot of, do you consider, what is the religion to you? So let me ask you that, since you're a pastor, what
Mhm.
is religion to you? Is that, because a lot of people, there are people out there who, some people out there who don't like to define their faith as a religion.
Mhm. Yeah. So if I understand your question correctly, some people like to categorize it like I have faith, but I don't have a religion that's like organized religion. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that you can get really technical with these definitions, but I think just kind of real basic. I think religion. Let's just talk about faith. I think faith is almost inescapable. Even science, even modern science has to uh, use a little bit of faith in what they do. Um, if you're going to go and run an experiment, observations in the field, right? You got to have faith that the results you got yesterday are going to be repeatable today, right? And when it comes to just doing science, right? So you got to have faith in just the fixed state of the universe, right? I'm talking really big terms here, right? Uh, Now, when it comes to faith and like I believe in shaman or Jesus or Buddha and all that, um, I think those things are so integral, so embedded to what it means to be human. We don't call it a religion. I've talked to a lot of um, I talked to some Hmong brothers and sisters who they'll say things like, "Well, I don't believe in Jesus, and I don't believe in shamanism either. I believe in nothing." But then you kind of hear them talk some more, and then they'll talk about like ghosts and spirits and demons, and they'll talk about the afterlife and what happens. And I'm like, but everything that you're saying there has like faith implication, right? That there's some kind of belief system in believing in spirits and what happens after you die, even if you don't call it shamanism, even if you don't call it Christianity. There's some kind of faith that every human person holds inside of themselves, whether or not they know it, right? And then religion, in a technical definition, is just again a more organized historical version of that faith. So religion is something that's you pass down, you teach your kids about it, right? And it's recognizable. Like one religion is recognizable throughout the centuries, right? So that's what religion is in my mind. Does that kind of answer that question a little bit?
Yeah, that helps clear it up a little bit. It does. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered that a lot myself too. And how has your faith helped you be a husband to your wife and a father to your children that they need?
Mm-hmm.
How
Oh,
important is it for you to be of that role model to them?
it's super important. I think it's almost at the heart of what I believe who God is. The family unit is the smallest unit of society. So if the family unit falls and crumbles, then society is going to be impacted by that. That's where you get if a family unit falls and a mother or a father is absent, that's where kids grow up with identity crisis. They join gangs, and that's where you get just all the bad stuff in society that we don't want. And so I really really believe the family unit is really at the core of humanity, right? It's huge. And again, because I believe in a God who has purpose for marriage, who has purpose for, even when you look at the human anatomy, right? Like there's a man and there's a woman, and they have the material to create a new life, and there's purpose in that reproduction. And so for me, all of that is tied to, as a father, as a husband, what's my role, right? And God show me through other people who follow you, Jesus. Show me through the Bible. What do you have to show me about what it means to love my wife well, and to love my children well. So there's a lot there that we can unpack, but at the core of it, I think my faith has a lot to do with how I'm a husband and how I'm a father.
Do you feel that you are closer to finding a purpose in life, or do you think you've already found it?
Yeah, great question. I think that's a really hard question to answer, because I think in part I have found purpose, but that's just partial. And I think what we feel like as our purpose is not always permanent. Especially when it comes to like a vocation or a job. I think those things are ever changing. Those things can evolve, right? And yet you can still be fulfilling your purpose through different jobs, right? Different callings. So in a way, I feel like I've found purpose and meaning, right? In in starting a family, in being a pastor. But I think that those things will evolve. Someday my kids are going to grow up and be out on their own, and I'll still be their father, obviously, but it's going to be in a different shape, different degree. And the way in which I serve at a local church will not be forever either, and so that's a hard question to answer, but I think the best way I can answer that is I feel like I've tasted purpose, but I don't know if I've fully consumed it yet, and I don't know if I ever will. I hope not yet, because we're not old, but we're not young either, right? So I hope that there's still that, exactly. I hope there's still more purpose to be experienced. So
I feel like there is, because you just started your journey as a pastor within like 3-4 months,
right?
So I feel like it's just a start for you, and I only hope that from here on out it just gets better and better, and I know it will. Some with your family, your wife, and your faith and your spiritual awakening and finding yourself when you were back in your 20s, always wondering why, and now the more as you age, your answer getting answered to who you are today, Dur.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for those words. Yeah.
I just wanted, to wrap things up and say thank you so much for your time. And any last parting words, Dur?
Man, I'm just so excited that I got Hmong brothers and sisters doing what you guys are doing. I'm so excited to be a part of it. I kind of see this as our generation. We got to pioneer this thing because it hasn't been done before as second generation immigrants, and so we're creating this thing from the ground up in terms of creating a Hmong American culture. And so I'm so excited that you guys are doing this, and I look forward to more of this. And I hope this inspires more people to start podcasts and to share their stories and to start, clothing companies like my brother Sal, just to do it all, just to go for it, just to dream, So thank you guys for the gift that you are to us, to the Hmong community.
Thank you so much. That means so much.
Yeah, that's a hashtag Hmong American milestone.
There you go.
All right, for you, Mai? Yeah. Anything for you, Mai?
No, nothing, Dur. Thank you so much for just sharing your story of your faith and your journey with trying to find yourself. And that's what our podcast is for. It's for helping our brothers and sisters to be inspired by other stories like yours and to help us find our own self, whether it's in Christianity, in nature, in whatever it is. That's what the purpose is for. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story with us.
That ends our episode. If you haven't yet, visit our official website at www.hmongmentalk.com or like and share us on Facebook at Hmong Men Talk.
Who also believes in building family values. She believes not only in investing in your future, but also investing in your present moment, creating time and memories with your family. If you have any insurance needs or any questions, please don't hesitate to call her at the link below.
Also, a special thanks to DJ Peter for using his beats. You can check him out at YouTube.